I'm just trying to survive. That's it, and it's very hard right now.
My monthly expenses are way more now.
High prices, crazy, ridiculous prices.
I am shopping sales and bargains for the first time in decades.
You can't lose money, and at some point you got to make a little money or you just have to quit.
Hello, I'm Brenda LeDunn. Thank you for joining us for our town hall, Living with Inflation. We're starting with something familiar to all of us, grocery stores. They are our lifeline. Without them, feeding our families and caring for our homes would be much more difficult. Bargain shoppers are regularly on the hunt for the best deals, but with prices rising day to day and week to week, many people are having to be more selective with what goes into their shopping cart.
Since COVID, I've been trying to go once every 2 or 3 weeks. It's usually a big buggy full.
Kathy Dillon says she's paying more at the grocery store, so when it comes to filling her cart, she sticks to her list.
Just get what's on the list and get out of there.
Gloria Ayala shops at Save More Food outlet each week, getting food to feed her family of 4.
I just look for the good deals.
She's not the only one shopping around.
I shop buy one, get one free a lot of times.
Customers have noticed a big increase in the price of meat, and it's not their imagination. Take a look at this graphic. This is from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can see from February 2021 to February 2022, the cost of food at home is up more than 8%. The last time we saw food prices up by more than 8% was in 1980. The increase this time being fed mostly by meat and eggs. Beef is up 16%, pork up 14%, chicken up 13%. Your breakfast staples, bacon up nearly 19%, eggs up 11%, and coffee that cost 10% more than a year ago. The USDA estimates beef, pork, and seafood prices will increase by about 3% this year. It's why some say they will think twice before making the purchase.
Lay off a lot of meats that you used to buy that you might not buy anymore, like steaks, $10 to $15 a piece.
But others will pay the price.
I get it anyway. Either somebody that high or low, I have to get it because we have to eat, I have to feed my family too.
Oh no, I go ahead and get them because it is a treat for us, It's something we enjoy not very often, but we do occasionally, and we enjoy them when we get them.
The Northern Ag Network tracks beef prices. We asked Coulter Brown what keeps beef prices continuing to surge.
Really what's driving the price increases that beef is being paid for by consumers. A lot of that comes back to the packing plant and really what started during the pandemic when they didn't have the labor because of shutdowns that really created this bottleneck situation. And now it's just been exacerbated as we still struggle, many industries, to get labor, and of course trucking challenges. So actually getting product across, it's just increased costs across the board.
Supply chain challenges are on the radar of our elected leaders in Washington. Earlier this year, the White House allocated $1 billion to independent meat and poultry producers. The Biden administration saying they want to increase competition in the meat packing industry to lower consumer prices.
Capitalism without competition isn't capitalism, it's exploitation. That's what we're seeing in meat and poultry and those industries now. Small, independent farmers and ranchers are being driven out of business, sometimes businesses that have been around for generations.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce criticized the move at the same time, saying government intervention will further constrain supply and push prices even higher. And this brings us to our first town hall question. We asked, when grocery shopping, the price of beef has caused you to buy less, choose lower quality cuts, opt for pork or chicken instead, or no change.
No, man, we don't buy all that kind of meat.
Buying bigger packages, the family packs and things like that, and that way I can divide it up and get 3 meals or 4 meals or whatever.
Chicken, really, as far as protein is chicken, the eggs. Looks like the eggs might have gone down just a little bit. So just being cautious of what I'm buying and, you know, making things stretch out a little bit more than what we used to. So.
Okay, so we know we're paying more at the grocery store, but for a moment, let's focus on beef. So we would assume producers are making more. That's not really the case. When you compare the consumer price index, what we pay, to the producer price index, what it costs to produce that item, these are from the January reports. Beef again, up 16% at the grocery store. But look at what it's costing to bring beef to market. The cost for farmers is up nearly 23% from a year ago. And then add in the processing, that cost balloons to 44% at the wholesale. So beef is costing farmers more, but in what way? We sent Valerie Bell to a farm in Montevallo to find out.
Farmers like Clifton Garrett will tell you this time of year is the money season. Money coming out of their pockets.
From now till fall is when most of our expense comes.
And this year, it comes at an extra cost.
It's making everybody nervous.
Prices on pretty much everything a farmer could need is up.
Some of our chemicals like Roundup, I think, is doubled. Fertilizer doubled.
I don't even have to tell the viewers what the fuel's gone up.
And livestock? Up 30%.
The price reflected at the grocery store isn't reflected back on our sales when we sell at the stockyards.
The challenge is getting their prices to match everything else. Farmers could, of course, reduce the size of their herds to make up for the loss, but then they wouldn't have anything to sell.
It costs more. It costs more to produce. It costs more to purchase. It's a difficult situation, but remember that there's people that it's their whole livelihood to put that product there in front of you, and they get paid once a year to do it.
And this year, there's a lot of uncertainty. Garrett says these rising prices aren't showing any signs of slowing down. He says it could cause a lot of farmers to throw in the towel.
You have to love it to be a farmer, no matter which kind you are, but you can't outlove eating. You've got to be able to survive financially.
We spent a lot of time talking about meat, but prices are going up on the bread aisle too. Overall, baked goods are up nearly 8%. Sandwich bread is up 6.5%. Sweet breads like coffee cakes and donuts cost even more, up 11%. And crackers, they're up 12%. A big reason for that is the surge in cost for wheat, something that will get even more expensive in the months ahead. February's numbers don't factor in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia is the world's top exporter of wheat, while Ukraine is a significant exporter of both wheat and corn. Roughly 30% of the world's supply is being disrupted by this conflict alone.
Either because facilities have been damaged and destroyed in the war, or alternatively because we have decided to impose a grain embargo on Russia, which would affect Ukraine as well.
And that means the rest of the world will now try to satisfy increased demand from Africa and the Middle East, which have come to rely on Russia and Ukraine. That demand coming from a finite supply, driving costs up for everyone. So let's get away from the farm for a moment and consider other changes here at the grocery store as well. Sure, we know prices are up, but we're also getting less for our money too.
Rather than explicitly changing a price, the producer or seller will change the size or quantity that they're selling. Effectively, it's a price increase, even though the price that you observe might not be changing.
To watch out for this, experts recommend checking the unit price. That's the price per ounce or per pound, and so on. That can help you figure out whether you're paying more for the same product and how to get the best deal. Whether it's a little smaller or comes in a different package really doesn't matter. The manufacturer still has to get the products from the plant to the warehouse and ultimately to the grocery store. And those costs are up significantly too. According to the January producer production report, moving freight by rail was up 9% for manufacturers. Trucks more than double that at 18%. And for those who choose air, that's up nearly 11%. The biggest impact, though, is the arrangement costs for shipping freight and cargo. This involves those huge container ships moving items internationally. The cost here, up more than 83% from a year ago. The lack of manpower is pushing the cost of shipping by truck up, and those who are going into the industry are finding themselves with multiple offers. At least that's what one man told our Bobby Portavin.
It wasn't hard for Eddie Camara to get his first truck driving job.
I must have applied like at 50 places, and every single one of them called me back.
The demand for drivers is so high that other truckers are trying to recruit him.
And they're like, oh, listen, if you ever want to change, my company's hiring.
Alabama Trucking Association President and CEO Mark Colson says there's 2,500 to 4,000 drivers needed in Alabama. He says those numbers have increased due to the pandemic and truckers retiring. Adam Casey is Vice President of Safety and Risk Management for Birmingham's Hornady Transportation. He says innovations in training, recruitment, and competitive pay have helped them get and keep workers through the shortage, but they're not in the clear. They anticipate needing 75 more drivers over the next year as new trucks roll in. They have partnered with Alabama Community College System's newly formed Innovation Center to help fill those positions.
I don't really see any downfalls right now.
Students could have their commercial driver's license in days, putting them in jobs faster and combating a nationwide problem.
We try and place them with a job before the training actually happens. And that's really the best, that's what's working best.
In Birmingham, Bobby Portavin, ABC 3340 News.
And then there's gas. We have to get to the store and to work, so we can't cut it out of our lives completely. The cost just keeps going up. We've all set record high numbers here in March. The costs we're seeing now won't even be factored into the Consumer Price Index until April. And who knows what a gallon of gas will cost by then. And that brings us to our next question. We asked people how they're dealing with the higher cost of gas, driving less, using a more fuel-efficient vehicle, carpooling, walking, or using public transportation.
I tend to get less gas, so I either just travel less or like try to think smart. Carpooling is important too. In general, it's very important, very for the environment.
We're having to rework our routes for a more gas-efficient way. So that means we have to be a little more stressful to ourselves.
Most people are on a budget. That extra gas money is going to have to come from somewhere. Recently, Diamond Nunnally talked to some people about the changes they're making to make ends meet.
They ridiculous. Like you see it, it's $4.39. It's crazy.
The cost at the pump has some people paying double to fill up their gas tank.
I mean, I used to be able to put like $50 in it. Now I'm putting like $100.
I spent $41 on a car that holds 11 gallons the other day. Never have I had to do that.
Tracy McAnally and her husband live in Coleman. They like to go camping and boating, but she says with what it costs to fill up the tank right now, those trips may not happen this year.
We're supposed to go camping next month, and we got to look at our gas and see, because we were going to Kentucky to see the Ark, and so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Miguel Yapolo lives with his sister. Normally, they like to keep a strict budget when it comes to rent, utilities, groceries, and gas.
Now we need to cut a lot of stuff back, because we can afford it.
Yapolo adds he's doing research to learn how to conserve fuel.
Now I try to see what we can do. I was reading some tips about save gas, like don't turn your AC, or or don't speed, or take care of your tire. But it's bad.
You heard Tracy McAnally say she and her family will cut back on camping this year. And that got us thinking about people in general. Are these record gas prices going to impact your summer fun? So we asked, will inflation change your summer plans?
Definitely gonna have to stay a little bit closer, or like limit traveling.
I'm just trying to survive, that's it, and it's very hard right now.
Even before gas prices really skyrocketed, when they were in the $3.15, $3.25 range, I mean, that was still kind of rough from going from $2 less than, a year and a half ago.
Gas prices are bad, and there's no disputing it. It's adding to the cost of everything, including what we get from the agriculture market where diesel powers heavy machinery. Consider Clifton Garrett in Montevallo. We heard from him earlier. He runs a small farm. Still, he estimates he burns through 10 gallons of diesel a day, and that's just to check on his cows. The American farmer has other fuel costs too. Plowing, seeding, fertilizing, spraying, and harvesting requires heavy equipment, most of which is diesel. Garrett was telling us, just on his small farm, he uses anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 gallons of diesel a year. The cost of diesel is double what it was a year ago. At these prices, Garrett will pay at least $3,300 more just to move his equipment around the farm.
When you see 50 cent a gallon jump in fuel overnight, it's got to be something's got to slow down.
Like most farmers, Garrett gets paid once a year, meaning he, like many farmers, are going into their savings to make ends meet for now, meaning if things don't slow down.
I think you're going to see a lot of people go out of business.
And how about those businesses that deliver? We talked to 2 small businesses about factoring in those higher costs. In Helena, ordering a pizza for delivery from All Original Pizzeria will cost you more. They tacked on an extra $1. Higher gas prices making it harder for them to get drivers.
We're overworking every single employee we have.
Flower shops also feeling the pain of deliveries. Dorothy McDaniel says she had no choice but to up delivery prices by a few dollars recently.
We're doing the best we can, but we have no choice in the matter because we're getting hit from, it's kind of a domino effect from different angles.
Her costs go beyond a tank of gas. Just the flowers alone, her cost 25 cents more per stem since the start of the year. Most of those increases being passed off to the customer, something to keep in mind as Mother's Day approaches. Keep in mind, fuel costs are only part of the problem. At the pizzeria, meat and wheat cost a lot more, and that's going to cost you more in the end, too. And the flower shop. Well, there's fertilizer to consider. A key component in fertilizer is nitrogen, which is costing 113% more than a year ago. By the end of 2021, the World Bank reported fertilizer prices were up more than 60%.
Across the board, fertilizer costs, chemical costs, doubling, in some cases even tripling in cost.
And now that sanctions are in place, cutting off Russian goods from entering the U.S. market, those costs are only going to rise. Russia is a top 5 fertilizer producer in the world. Last year, the United States imported more than $1 billion worth of fertilizer from Russia. So how did we get here? Sure, Russia and Ukraine will be a factor moving forward, but keep in mind prices were up even before the invasion. Valerie Bell gets some answers from a UAB economist.
20 months ago, there was roughly $4 billion in cash moving through the U.S. economy. That was until the CARES Act passed, a series of stimulus bills preventing the U.S. from going into a recession. Now, $4 billion is $20 billion, marking the biggest cash flow in circulation than at any other point in our country's history.
Money basically went directly from the Federal Reserve straight to the consumer's pockets. So it was a far faster expansion of the money supply than what we're used to.
Dr. Joshua Robinson, an economic professor at UAB, says that's why prices are continuing to skyrocket. He explains Americans have more money to spend, but the items available haven't increased. It's an issue of supply versus demand.
We were very restricted in how we could spend our money. But as the economy's opened back up, we're seeing those price increases spread out among all goods and services now. To a certain extent.
Robinson explains these new prices at the grocery store, the gas pump, or your local coffee shop will be the norm moving forward. Their cost will continue to go up.
Usually, deflation is the result of a major recession. So unless something bad happens, we shouldn't see prices come down. Instead, what we'll see is the pace of price increase should slow as the Fed gets a handle on it.
Many people are wondering when things will at least return to what we are used to, which is prices increasing at a normal rate. Dr. Robinson says he thinks it's going to take at least a year before we start seeing that. Brenda?
So the pandemic and the stimulus bill are a big part of the increases. Something we haven't really mentioned, housing costs. They're up too, and financial analysts expect those costs to keep rising.
The numbers that we see in the inflation index for shelter, for example, I think the worst is yet to come there because we typically see a lag Case in point, the shelter index over the last year up 4.7%, but yet home prices are up by double-digit percentages in markets coast to coast, and now rents are increasing in a similar fashion.
So there you have it. Food, gas, and housing all expected to cost more through the end of this year.
Most consumers didn't expect this. And I think we did a poor job, both from the Federal Reserve and the federal government in general, of communicating that this was a possibility that we needed to watch out for.
The question is, looking back, do you think the stimulus bills were worth it?
So it was kind of a public health crisis, so I think it was definitely worth it in interest of public health.
I just believe that, those things always help. So I believe in some part it does help.
So as inflation continues to rise, what's the solution?
And so now the Fed has to pull the reins back a little bit. But they have to do so very slowly, because if they do this too quickly, they could actually cause a recession. Americans are going to have to get good at asking for raises again. So this used to be a kind of a standard thing that everybody in the labor force knew back in the 70s, right? Every year you had to go and make sure that your boss was giving you a raise so you could keep up with expenses.
And that leads us to our final town hall question. Do you feel comfortable asking your employer for a cost of living adjustment? Will employers be receptive to a workforce asking for raises to match inflation, and can they afford to do so? Those answers will come with time. To those of you sharing your thoughts and stories with us, we thank you. If you want to be part of the discussion moving forward, we invite you to use the Chime In feature on our website and on our mobile app. I'm Brenda LeDunn. Thank you for watching our Town Hall special, Living with Inflation.